Thank you to our three sponsors for supporting our podcast. Johnny Russell's Art Caterers and Milltown Pies, who offer fantastic catering services, Alexander Grace Law, who provide modern and client-led legal services, and SPE Furnishings, who offer high-quality furnishings and electrical items at fantastic prices. Remember being knocked out against Burnley when the ball hit me on my head?
Can't remember that, Joe. Well, you possibly can't remember it, but I can't remember it.
It was Cobus had ball one, and I think Barrett had sort of nicked it down the leg side and a dive full length, and it went straight through the middle of my hands, as it usually does. Sparked out, Blez.
To be honest, it doesn't take a lot to spark you out either, though.
You just started talking a lot of nonsense, Joe, but no one could tell.
Gordon, send more house to save the house. Come on, the house!
Hello, welcome to the Housecast. This is one of a number of episodes that we've done over the past few weeks. Today's episode is a slightly special episode, I would say, in that we're going to be discussing the 2014 season when we won the championship. I have three guests that played in that season, all legends. So as I said, we've got three guests on today who played in that season and played a really valuable part. First one is Chris Bleazard.
Hey.
Needs no introduction.
Thank you, Joseph.
No problem, Blez. The second one is Patrick Martin. How are you, Patrick?
Wonderful, thanks, Joe. Thanks for
Excellent.
the full name as well.
No problem. And the last one was our professional for the year, and we're really happy to have him on, in that it was Cobus Pienaar, and is Cobus Pienaar. How are you, Cobus?
Very well, thanks, Joe. Thanks for hosting us and thanks for having me. It's quite cold here in South Africa at the moment. We're heading into winter now, and obviously we're back at school now with the COVID thing. Starting to get back slowly but surely, but always good to catch up with you guys, and definitely going to enjoy talking about some memories we made in 2014 as well.
And likewise, Cobus, I'm really excited to talk about these because I was actually involved in some of these ones, so it should be good. Blez, how are you?
Very well. Out in the garden. I've got a cleaner visit this morning. I know the time slightly got missed in the midst of South Africa English time that you've had to get up at 6:30 to make this possible.
I mean, geography and time zones aren't my forte, Blez. As many things aren't. I'm not going to lie to you there. Hello, Patrick. This is slightly strange in that you sat upstairs.
Very much so, yeah.
As opposed to near Lowerhouse in South Africa. How are you getting on in the lockdown?
Interesting question, Joe, really, because you know everything that I've done. So it feels a bit bizarre telling you. But I am fine, not doing very much in work today at school, so can't wait for that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that sounds like you're excited to do that.
Hopefully we don't run on too long.
Well, we're only discussing a full season. It should be fine. So, as I said, we're going to discuss the 2014 season. This was the first season after Francois' successful tenure as pro. And we were looking to carry on the success with a new professional in Cobus Pienaar. So, Cobus, you signed the contract. You arrived at the club. What were your first impressions?
Yeah, it was quite a cold morning arriving at Manchester Airport, and the MD, renownedly Matt Stanley, picked me up in his Nissan van, and I got in there. And as me chatting away, driving back to Burnley, I don't think the clouds were higher than the top of the change rooms at the time. And we drove into Lowerhouse, and it was a grim Manchester morning. It was a grim Burnley morning there, and I got there. And the first impressions was getting to the ground and seeing Bob, I think it's Bob Spencer, busy painting the railings at the club. And that was quite special for me to see that the guys are actually so keen for the season to get going. Because if I remember correctly, that Friday was the Easter Friday when we had those games with all the youngsters around the club, and we had the 4 or 5 different pitches. And it was like, what struck me early doors was quite a community club and a community-based club, which I really enjoyed. And I could see there's a lot of passion from the members of the club to actually be part of the system. You know, you hear all these things and you see these things on social media, but to experience it first and that Friday was brilliant for me to actually become part of the Lowerhouse family.
think that's a really good point, Cobus, and one that we haven't discussed on the podcast before, but the pros usually come in and around the Good Friday, Easter weekend. So it is a good way for them to see what the club's like and meet all the different people that are involved. Blaise, so can you remember anything about Cobus when he first arrived?
I don't know whether did we have some food down at Crowwood, one of the first meetings we had, Cobus? I can't remember. I think we had some food down at Crowwood at one stage, just after you arrived.
I first met you and most of the guys that Thursday evening when I arrived. We had some sort of practice there. It was freezing cold. I remember that we couldn't really move our feet or our hands weren't working. But that's my first meeting. And then, I think you're correct. We went down to Crowwood just to meet the guys and to get the membership sorted. And we had some food there.
Yeah.
It was the Saturday after the Friday. And then we spent a bit of time there getting involved and obviously meeting all the people there, which was quite special.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think we should know, Blaise, I don't know if you can remember. Were we in the old changing rooms then, or the new changing rooms?
For sure, the old changing rooms. And they were very old. That was the transition season.
They had some wonderful character, though.
They did have, but they were freezingly cold. Myself and Blaise were stuck behind the door in the little corner there. I remember that. Yeah.
I think from memory, I think there was definitely a hole in the door.
Yeah, Agger's put that through.
Yeah, Agger's definitely put that through.
Yeah, and then I'm fairly sure I finished it off, Blaise.
Angry Paddy? No.
Well, Angry Paddy will be discussed today, Blaise. The plaster was definitely coming off the wall near where Cobus was sat.
Yeah.
3
years of Francois, that's going to happen, isn't it?
Remember, our chairs weren't great either. The bottoms were coming out of our chairs, but we survived.
Well, we had those wooden chairs with a sort of 4 imitation leather.
Leatherette.
They'd all split. Mine was always saturated when they sit next to the sink. That used to leak and only used to give you cold water. It was always freezing in there. I'm pretty sure the light was hanging off after Joe Hawke tried to head it.
Yeah.
Just grim, I think. For someone who came from such nice clubs in South Africa, I think that was a real eye-opener.
I think it was an eye-opener, but I reckon in my playing years in the UK, there was one worse change room than that. And it was the visitors' change room. It was the visitors' change room at Fleetwood Cricket Club.
Oh, yeah.
They were literally frying fish and chips right next to the change room, and the smells were coming through the top, and there wasn't a lot of space, but we survived. Fishy Fleetwood, they call it.
Just on a side note, Blaise, this isn't a jab at your progressing age, but do you remember moving into those changing rooms? Because I don't know when it was.
No, I think it was 1860s. No, just before, probably 1960s when the old pavilion changed. You see some of the photos on the website. The 1970s, it was there without the West End room on it.
Right. Was that your off season then? Where you had the year
probably. Doing my national service during those years, Paddy.
It was a very cold start to the year, and our first game was against Church. Now, we were obviously really confident for the year. We just signed a brand new professional who came with brilliant stats. I would say the players at that time were at the top of their game. Everyone was contributing.
The youngsters weren't they, that we'd had in 2011, 2012 had grown up a little bit, haven't they? In terms of matured and knew what they were doing.
Yeah, I think that we would have been maybe 18 or
19, 20 were
20 at the time, I think. I was certainly at university, the second year of university, so I'd have been 20. Yeah. We played a couple of friendlies, Cobus. Can you remember what you thought of the team? Any particular standout players?
Yeah, my thinking going back to that was obviously the Thursday night, seeing the guys and seeing the culture around the club and things. I was super excited and super impressed in terms of the quality of players that we had. But if you remember correctly, we were very poor in our pre-season friendlies, and first two, 3 games. I remember the structure was quite funny how we played, not home and away. We played sort of Church very early in the season, both games. And I think we lost both, if I'm not mistaken. And we lost against Rottenstall in between on that game we never should have played. We only started like 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And ours came and Brett Pelser beat us. And we were poor, We played against that one side from Manchester. I can't remember the name, in a friendly. We were also poor. And I remember in that same change rooms after the second loss against Church, I don't want to run the whole podcast ahead, but Blaise put us down there, and it was the first time he really spoke, and he spoke quite hard words, and he said that what we're doing is not good enough. And that sort of changed the whole system where we went from there, because that time it felt like for me, from coming outside, I know the wickets were difficult and the conditions were tough, but we were just not gelling as a team at the time. I think it was quite new, and that was a thing that stand out for me, how we turned it around from that poor start to have the unbelievable run. And I think I remember correctly Blaise's words there. We just said that's not what Lowerhouse stands for, and the way we played, especially the second game against Church, we were just going through the motions. It was almost myself also. I bowled terrible my second spell there, and we went for 6 and over at the time. And if you look at the end of the year stats compared to the start, we were just not there, And I think that was a massive culture change for us, and a collective decision to be better, and to be better as teammates and as Lowerhouse first team cricketers. And that was a big change for me after actually a bizarre start in terms of our warm-up games and our first three games.
We lost the first 3 of 6 games that season. We lost, as you said, both games against Church. Levi scored a century in the first game, and then you were hit for 6 in off the last ball in the
into the road. You're right. Into the rhythm. You can say it happens. Didn't happen a lot. There's not a lot of guys who can say they got it right, but it did happen.
It did. And the other thing I remember from that second Church game was Finchy, after we'd gone through everything that Bleazard said, how we were trying to be better, and Finch just said, "But Cobus, you just got a bowl short there." and that rate. But you are right. From the culture did change from there, and I think that we then started to think more like a professional outfit. Certainly, we started changing the warm up, because I think we played football before that, but then we had a really structured warm up and sort of fielding drills as well. And I think Blaise was quite a big part of that as well. Can you remember the thinking behind it, Blaise? Or
no, it was a bit strange, wasn't it? We just struggled at the top of the order. We just didn't get runs quickly enough, did we? In that first sort of 5-6 games, although you look at some of the scores, they were all. The first game against Church, we ended up getting, I don't know.
We got 253.
Did we? Well,
yeah, but we should have got a lot more. I can remember.
Yeah. We the wicket, it was dead and nice. It just came on nice, and we just didn't get enough. And we did that the first 5 or 6 games. We were just trying to find the right tempo for the innings, and against different oppositions on different tracks. And I know that we had a bit of rain the second game, and the wickets changed, don't they, with the weather during the week. But we just couldn't find the right tempo somehow, and we just kept going through the motions, going through the same sort of thinking process where we needed to change it up sometimes and make sure that we attacked a little bit earlier at the top if we needed to. Because we were batting all the way down to, we ended up with yourself and Fergus sometimes batting at 10 and 11. Well, we could, they all got Lancashire League 50s, and it just, we just seemed to be pondering around at the beginning of the innings when we had batting all the way down to 11. So it was a case of a reset, wasn't it, after those defeats, and certainly after that Church second defeat.
Yeah, very much so. And at that stage, we had, I would say, 13 quality cricketers.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there were lots of issues going with that. In that, Ben was banned. He got banned for a game, I think. Johnny Whitehead was injured.
Yeah.
He'd done his groin, and he had to do a late fitness test with Nigel Brown. I can remember them. I can remember them jogging up Liverpool Road towards Sycamore Farm. Nigel, wait, Johnny, wait. Yeah, he's fit. He's fit. So that obviously created a few issues in itself, finding where to put people in. Finch was obviously then available. He missed the first few games.
Yeah.
So trying to find the right balance of where people should go and where people should fit in that batting order, I think took a little bit of time to do, but I think we did eventually get it right. In the midst of those first 6 games, we did have a really big win against Todmorden, where they had Michael Nesser as pro, and Bleazard got 40 odd that day. But again, we probably came up short. We were all out for 170, and they probably looked like they were going to win it until Cobus came up and got their pro out with a really big wicket. Can you remember anything from that game, Cobus?
If I remember correctly, Michael Nesser came in and he played like very freely. He had a lot of boundaries early doors in his innings. He was striking the ball like it was an old ball. And I remember coming back from usually bowled from the park in from the car park end, from the clubhouse end, my first spell, and then usually I came back from the park end, second spell. And I remember when I got him out, it sort of opened the gate and there was a bit of hope from us. And I just remember getting a couple of wickets there because the ball was starting to tail back late in the afternoon there, and they were under pressure there, and obviously hitting them LBW and bowled after Nesser's wickets would open the gap for us. I think they were cruising. They thought the game were over, and I remember Sutcliffe, with his surname, the captain there, was walking around the field as if they've won it already. They had the left-handed opening batter also, was a good player, and they were like walking around the wicket, around the pitch there, and the game was sort of in the pocket for them. We managed to change it after Michael Nesser's wicket with a couple of early wickets there, and that was quite a special. Looking back at photos now that I've seen on the website and things, that sort of brought us as a team together because we were down and out again, and it sort of changed. And the way we celebrated and the way we got together there, I think was massive in terms of the turnaround for us going in the right direction for that season.
When I looked at that game, although we did lose the next game against Church, it was a rain-affected game and they won by 1 wicket, the Church game. That Todmorden game certainly got us going and getting us in the right sort of frame of mind and how we were going to progress forward. Pat, you haven't said anything yet. Do you have anything to say about that first 6 games?
Yeah, from what I can remember, very little. No, I'll go straight to the Todd game because we were just talking about that. Games like that are always good momentum shifters, aren't they, really? So they can get a team going in the right direction when it's a close game or a game that you get a bit out of jail of. But I think it's always going to be a struggle when the weather was like it was. It's so unpredictable as to what the wickets are going to be like, how they're going to perform. But yeah, that game at Todd really changed things around. It's just a shame Cobus didn't get his 5 wickets that day.
I reckon my granny could have caught that ball with her eyes closed, but Paddy managed to miss it. But it happens.
Yeah, it was really
stronger.
Really windy that day.
Who did you drop? Who did you drop there, P?
Was it the pro?
I can't remember.
Weren't as bad as the Phil Hayes one, were it, Paddy?
No, it was Sav. It was quite possibly Bleazard. It was Sav. Because Oakley got him out of ball later, I think.
I think there were another one that season against Nelson. We didn't bowl them out. But we can come on to that later, where you dropped a coat and bowled, I think. Sorry, P.
Yeah, don't worry about it, Joe. I mean, you've never dropped one, have you, off me?
Well, geez.
I'd have 700 wickets if you had.
Hey, Blaise, these things happen, don't they?
Occasionally, Joe. Only occasionally for you.
I'm not Alan Knott. Not Alan Partridge behind stumps. So, after that Church game, we changed a few things. We changed the warm-up. We then went, unbelievably, we went on a 19-game winning run. Started with the Colne game, where we got 270, and sort of just progressed from there. Cobus was coming into his own. He was starting to understand the wickets, certainly when he was bowling. Probably didn't quite get to grips with the bat, as we might have hoped, but the wickets were soft and we just kept bowling people out.
Ted, the second half of the season, we just didn't let sides get any runs, did we? So, I think hardly anybody batted.
Yeah.
And we were only chasing scores of 100, 110, 120, 130 for the rest of the season. They were the maximums, and we chased some really low scores, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, I think for 5 weeks we were finished by 5:30.
Yeah.
consecutive. Yeah. We bowled Rami out, we bowled Rishton out. I'm just going to go to probably the important game in that start. After the Con game, we played Burnley. Always an important game, Blaise. Because usually it doesn't matter how you're playing at the time, or it's just how it is on the day, I think. They had a few of the stars playing. David Brown was playing, and obviously Holty was pro. But we did manage to bowl them out. Cobus, can you remember anything from that game?
Was that the game at Burnley?
Yeah, the game at Burnley, yeah.
I remember that. I think what they said now about the low scores were definitely quite relevant in that season, because after our start, I think we were quite ruthless as a bunch, and we realized that we had to make good decisions to get results, because we were sort of behind the pack after the first sort of 3-4 weeks of the season, and that made our thinking change. I remember if we won a toss, we looked to bowl first, and to be sort of ruthless was the word that we used, and it came to mind for us there in terms of points and in terms of chasing as little scores as possible. And that was the same there. I think I remember Yorker that I bowled to David Brown early doors, got the wicket that got us going. And for some reason, I know the rivalry between the two clubs, and it's brilliant. And I got mates who played there over the time. And it's great to have two such strong clubs in the Lancashire League in one town. And for me, for some reason, I always enjoyed playing against them. I think it got the best out of me. Personally, looking back at stats, my 2 seasons of you guys, my games against Burnley was definitely standout games in terms of my personal performances. And that was always good to play against them and to measure yourself. And I think that was a big thing for us in terms of beating them convincingly there after we sort of changed things around, and to sort of have that belief that if we can be that star-studded side at their own ground, at their own turf, there's not really anyone else that we should be worried about. We can just go from strength to strength. And we all chipped in. I remember it's always tense games, and there's always a bit of verbal abuse from the side and things. But that's brilliant, and that's what makes amateur cricket in the Lancashire League so special, to have close to, I don't know what the exact numbers is there, but it's always a good crowd there. Lowerhouse and Burnley play. And that's the things that I will certainly remember, and I think that's the things that you guys are still there live for every season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was, I would say, one of your best all-round performances. 6 for 22 or 14 overs, and then so was home with 40 on and out. One shot in particular I can remember is you pulling Cole Heyman off your nose for 1 bounce 4 to get us closer to the finishing line. The other thing I can remember, Cole bowled really quick that day, and Finch opened the batting, and I can just remember him on maybe the first or second ball hitting him straight back over his head for a 1 bounce 4. And when he came in, I said, Finch, that were amazing. How did he? He went, I don't know, I had my eyes shut.
Typical Finch. Of Cole Heyman is definitely as quick as an amateur bowler that most guys have faced. He's definitely bowled close to 90 clicks at times. Sometimes the action might have been a little bit skeptical. In terms of the action outcome, it was quite sharp at times.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Very quick. But that was a great win. P, do you have any thoughts on that win and the kind of start from there?
Well, I can remember being either next in or next but one, and not looking forward to that. I think there was me, Charlie and Fergus left, and obviously Charlie not really bothered, but me and Fergus were just sat there shaking. Luckily, we didn't need to go in. They're always great games, aren't they, against Burnley, more often than not. They're either really close or someone absolutely batters at someone. So, close day, that one. Luckily, we came out on top, but a strong all-round performance from your pro, and that's what you really pay them for, isn't it? To win you some games where the amateurs struggle.
I think, as I said, that was one of Cobus's best performances for me, and it really highlighted that we had a high-quality performer. And I think after that game, we really got in our stride, and we started playing really well.
Join us, stand west in tight hands. Worsley Cup still gleaming, years without a cup, never stopped us dreaming.
Welcome to Stories with Stan.
Talk about Higgy if we get a chance, but Higgy, another one, the funniest guy I've ever played with in a change. Brian has 8,000 Lancashire League runs under his belt, second in the all-time charts for Lowerhouse run scorers. He's a couple of dozen ahead of me, although he did play 200 games more. Now, of course, Brian's still watching. He's in his 70s. He watches us. I'll never forget the tears rolling down his face when the cup was presented in 2004 to Matthew. And he's one of my best pals. And he means a lot to me. He means a lot to Lowerhouse Cricket Club. But that won't stop me from having a bit of a laugh. As a wicketkeeper, Brian's forte was stood back, the leg side catch. He was more than adequate stood up, but the leg side flying catch was his speciality. In those days, once the ball had passed the batsman's backside, most wicketkeepers would watch it go down to long leg. We played with long legs in those days. If Ben Heap and Francois Horsbrook are listening, you might want to try that these days. Because a long leg on the boundary edge can stop 4 byes or 5 wides. The modern genre, long legs aren't often used. I think, Jez, when you were captain, if some bowler said, I don't want a long leg, who can we put there? You'd probably have said, I've solved that problem. You can go and field there because you're not bowling. Brian had a very acrobatic style with this leg side catch. As I say, the ball would pass on the leg side, sometimes quite wide because there were no leg side wides in those days and you had to bowl a monster of a wide to be given a wide. And Brian would run and dive, arms outstretched, and catch the ball 3 to 4 feet off the ground, entirely parallel to the ground. And it was almost as though time stood still for a couple of seconds as he took this catch. There was no momentum. The ball hit his gloves. He's levitating off the ground. And then it was almost as though somebody pressed fast forward and he just crashed to the deck. Catch held. Noise recorded at Jodrell Bank. A couple of the tallies had flicked round in the scoreboard because of the resonance. And we all absolutely rung to him, patting him on the back. Modest as ever. Brian would say something along the lines of, and he'd stand there, his cap had gone skew with, he'd have mud and dust in his moustache. Something along the lines of, no problem, lads, I had it covered all the way.
The next game that I want to discuss is the Enfield game at home. Again, the weather had been terrible, and they had Werner as pro. Great off-spin bowler, always tied you down. And the kind of notable thing that I remember from this game, Bless, is that you batted at 10.
Yeah, we were sort of like, we were 8 for 54, weren't we?
Yeah.
And it was one of those days where Stanley and Charlie's, always, when we lose quick wickets, it was to get, one of our more defensive batsmen into the order, wasn't it? In that sense, sort of like, yeah. So sometimes promote yourself, Joe, and Fergus sometime, and then Paddy, and it was to try and sort of like spread out myself, Orky, Charlie, and try to get ourselves back in the game by batting balls rather than trying to score runs, and to get to halfway, maybe for 4 or 5 down rather than try and go guns blazing and then having to do that at the back end. So I think we promoted people above where we wanted to be at that stage, hadn't we?
Yeah.
Can't quite understand how Declan got in front of me in that scheme of things. It didn't sort of like, the flashing blade going into to play dot balls wasn't.
He did all right though, Bless, that day.
He did brilliantly. But if you're going off that sort of rationale of why we changed the batting order, then
I just found the scorecard as well, Bless, and Orky went in before you as well.
Yeah.
Now I think I actually remember why was that. I think this was the first season that there was a reduction in overs that people could bowl. I've only just remembered this now, but I think we were waiting for Werner to finish his overs because they thought they were going to bowl us out.
Yeah, possibly.
So we're waiting for Werner to bowl out and to send Blez in.
Yeah. And
he had a fantastic partnership with Deck and another great partnership in the Cup as well later on, I think Blez.
Yeah, I think we'd sort of like, obviously, the plan had gone awry a little bit because Werner still had quite a few overs left when I went out to bat. And I think we just decided that between myself and Declan that I'd take Werner and let Declan bat at the other end and try and get Declan's confidence up in that way rather than to try and think about smashing Werner, which wasn't necessarily the greatest thing to do on that pitch. And it worked well.
I mean, Deck batted extremely well that day. And I think at that point we thought we were going to get a good player for years to come. Unfortunately, you broke his finger in a warm-up, Les. But we probably won't discuss that bit.
A bit of a shame that the overs were restricted to the bowlers, because I'd have really enjoyed watching Cobus bowl 25 every weekend.
I'm already down from 6'3" to 6'1". I would have been 5'11".
I'm sure you'd have really enjoyed 50 over weekends.
And again, we restricted them really well. Fur got their pro out, LBW, that was a very thick inside edge. It wasn't out, and Adam Bracewell was mad. But again, you need that sort of luck when you're going to win leagues. Obviously, I didn't appeal, Blez, because I didn't think it was out.
You have to take every pro's LBW with like it's Christmas, don't you? Because you very rarely get them, do you?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I'm glad we've discussed LBWs, because that will sort of lead us on to another LBW later in the season. So again, a massive win. We're now on a bit of a roll, being really confident. But as Cobus alluded to early in the podcast, it was a really strange season. It wasn't sort of split. So you didn't play everybody once and then everybody again. It was a really strange split. So you ended up playing teams straight away, maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. The next game was against Burnley at home. Again, a massive game, because they had picked probably their best team, except for maybe a couple of players at the time. And we were obviously going in with confidence. We had no deck at the time was playing well, and Johnny was playing well. Can you remember anything from the home game, Blez? We batted first and got 200 odd.
Can't remember much about the batting. I know we got a decent score against them. I can just remember our bowling innings. It just sort of seemed like we got wickets after wickets after wickets. We got on a roll and just bulldozed them right in the middle of the first 10 overs. We just kept getting wicket every over, it seemed like, or 2 wickets an over. And they get to 100, and that was because I think Coleman got some near the end. We had them sort of like, again, 7 or 8 for not very many at all, did we?
7 for 37 we had them for.
Yeah.
I mean, Ben batted really well in the first innings, and some great additions at the end of our innings with yourself and Hawkey and Deck batting really well. But as you say, the bowling innings. Cobus, I'll bring you in now. What can you remember from that day in terms of our bowling innings?
I remember at home, must have been that year that Chris Holt nicked off to you, and he stood the first one, and literally like 2-3 balls after that, he nicked it again. And we got him. I remember I got him out sort of twice in the same game. I can't remember who the umpire was, but he stood against a blatant nick. And as Murphy's Law works, he nicked one again. That's the real one that I can really remember. I would like for you just to give us a bit of info in terms of the bowling card there. I remember Matt Walker was swinging the ball also that day quite a lot, also very late. He had a very good season in 2014, and I thought obviously with his knee injuries, I think he ticked all the right boxes to become a serious cricketer. Just a pity he got injured with his knee.
Thing about Maz, I mean, he only bowled 5 overs that day, but I can remember he was swinging a lot. The thing about Maz was that he was a fighter. I love playing cricket with Matt, because you knew that he would always give 100% and he would fight till the end. I will just go through the figures. Hawkey took 4 for 23 off 9. Corb, you took 3 for 14 off 5. Matt was none for 19 off 5. Ferg none for 12 off 6. Pat, you were 2 for 24 off 7, and Ben took 1 for 13 off 3. But there was a middle spell that Blez alluded to where Corb and Hawkey just sort of blew through their top order. That game, Corb bowled extremely well. Hawkey bowled really well. And at that point, I would say, I started to think that, Pat, you bowled all right. At that point, I would say I was really starting to think that we were going to go and win the league. I didn't think that we were going to win it quite as emphatically as we did. But things just started to gel then. I think the quality of the players that we had and just how the group was coming together.
We started hammering sides, didn't we, really?
Yeah.
Proper drilling them, not sort of, getting in close games. We had, maybe 1 or 2 close games after that, but more often than not, we were just absolutely drilling sides.
I think the fact that we did have a settled 13 sort of thing helped as well, didn't it? That there weren't masses of changes every week. Because having a settled side does really help, especially in league cricket where you can get a couple of wins and you're on a nice run, and it's good to get going.
I've said it a lot through the bits that we've discussed of past past seasons. It's about getting, once the confidence is up, less thought needs to be taken. It just, one game seems to follow the next game, and you don't appear to have done anything massively different from that first 6 weeks. But then everything just sort of starts on the bandwagon, and everything just keeps going downhill, and you just steamroller inside. It was a brilliant back end of the season to play, because you just never thought you were going to get beat.
I'd agree with you on that, Blez. At no point during that run did I ever think we were going to get beaten. Through the Cup's runs in the semi-final of the Worsley Cup, and then when we got to the final of the T20 as well, I just didn't. You were right. I didn't think we were going to get beat.
So come and join us. Stand west in tight hands. Worsley Cup still gleaming. Years without a cup. Never stopped us dreaming.
Welcome to Stories with Stan.
1985, we're playing at Nelson. Brian's got 4 victims. The professional Curtis Azad, who could be a grumpy old soul. He's on 5 wickets. So Higgy's 1 victim off a collection. Curtis 1 victim off a collection. The ground's absolutely packed. They probably have taken each the modern day equivalent of something like 300 quid. Up goes the ball. Curtis bowls it. Up it goes. A big, almighty big hit, but the ball goes straight up in the air for miles. It's dropping between Curtis and mid-off. It's a bit of a hesitation who's going for it. 1 or 2 other fielders are converging on it. Then all of a sudden you hear, mine! And Higgy comes running from outside, from the back of the sticks, running down the pitch, elbowing, pushing people out of the way. He's having a stiff catch. He told me later he could hear people reaching into the back pocket for the collection. He gets to the ball, but his arms are outstretched. It's not quite a dive, and unfortunately, the ball goes straight through his hands. And to make matters worse, he's mid-stride, and as the ball hits the deck, Higgy half volleys it into the bowling green wall. Everybody is dumbstruck. Curtis Azad doesn't know what to say. I think I'm the captain that day. I'm stood with my hands on my hips, trying to take it all in. Some are giggling, trying to suppress it. Others are equally dumbstruck. And Higgy turns round, obviously feeling a bit sheepish, simply said, I had to go for it. Nobody else wanted it. And as he said that, there's a trail of bodies down the wicket that he stepped on, trampled over and pushed to one side to get there.
Another game that I'd like to mention that was a Lancashire Cup game that I really strongly dislike that cup, Bless. But it was a game against Hayside quite early on.
Remember that? First time I've ever seen a professional barracks.
Yeah, so but by the opposition captain that was sat on the top side. So Cobus had bowled, he was putting his jumper back on. I would say after Cobus had finished bowling, he was always slightly lethargic in how he went to put his jumper back on and his attitude to fielding. Great fielder, never saw him drop a catch except for this one. And the reason for it, exactly. The reason for it was because his jumper was over his face at the time and he had his cap in his hand. He managed to get his hands on it but dropped it. And then their captain and their players started barracking him from the sidelines, which made Cobus extremely angry, threatened to hit people on the heads and stuff like that. And we were bowling them out really cheaply, and their captain came out and walked to Chaz and apologised.
Was that the game when Shadi van Skalvik was the pro for Hayside?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I was guilty. I should have got my jumper on earlier. I made a mistake, but there was no reason for me to have a go from the side.
Do you remember the Haslingden game, Joe? Are you going to mention that Haslingden game?
The Haslingden game away, Blez.
Yeah, when we bowled them out for just over 100. And
yeah.
I don't know who got it was one of those, we must have been 50 odd for 2, something like that. So me and Charlie were just getting ready for a shower, thinking there's no chance we're going to be needed. And then it all went pear-shaped, and we'd lost like 3 wickets in no time. So Charlie had to put his pads on. Again, we got up to about 80 for 6, something like that, chasing 100. There were no chance of us losing the game. I was padded up, Declan was padded up, and I think Declan was padded up to go after me. And then we got down to needing 15 or so. So I said, Declan, you go in. I said, but there's one thing for sure, Declan, if I have to bat, there's going to be trouble. So go out there and make sure you see us home. He had a wild swipe at once, second ball. I don't know whether he got bowled, but he was just, not listened to a word I'd said. So I had to walk out and bat with Oki. And that's when Oki hit that last ball, smashed it over the top and went, ta-da!
Do you know, I've forgotten he'd done that, Liz.
Wasn't that the game when Brendan Batsman got the LBW and he was having that go the umpire in proper West Indian?
Yeah.
What did you say again?
What kind of stumps you playing with?
Remember that?
I mean, to be fair, the LB hit him on his chin.
I don't like this that you go against us with all the LBW shots. Shit. It's supposed to be on our side.
But that's the thing. But that was the thing about the league at the time. Well, still is, I guess. Their pro had been giving out LBW, so it was absolutely 100% nailed on that you were going to be giving out LBW for anything that hit your pads. I was walking around at the time, as I usually do, and I was stood side on, and that one must have hit you on your hip. And finger went straight up. No qualms about it. That was out, apparently. Do you know, I'd forgotten about that, Bless, about the hockey.
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
He came out, didn't he, and said, I don't know what I was thinking.
I mean, we just carried on. We just carried on hammering teams from there. And I don't really like saying it, but we did. There were kind of really nondescript games.
Well, it was strange. I think we played Bake Up. Did we play Bake Up away? Or was it away when they got at home when Farragut got 100? Was that at home?
Home that place.
Home. And they didn't get that many for saying that their opening batter got 100. 180 maybe, 190, possibly something like that.
184. Right.
And I think Charlie and Ben just went ballistic, didn't they? Just 70 odd and 90 odd. You just one of them games where you thought we've let Baker. They were near the bottom. We've let Baker get 180. Their pro, was it Hasib? Their pro that year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A decent bowler, weren't he? Not the greatest. Didn't look like he were going to get hundreds of runs every time he batted, but all right. But very good bowler. You thought if he gets on a roll, we're in with a chance. Johnny gets out early. And then Ben and Charlie just flogged them all over. It were another 25 overs. Did it go to 25 overs or so to beat them?
Yeah. The 36 overs.
Right.
Ben got 90 odd. No, it's all right.
Yeah.
Ben got 90 odd. Chas got 70 odd. Remember that game as well, because I think Johnny wasn't struggling, but not getting his big scores that he usually gets. And he absolutely smashed Dave Warren first to second ball, I think. Of his, and hit it so hard. Their fielder at mid-on hit his hand and popped up and caught it. If it had been scoring runs every week, that'd have gone for a 1 bounce 4. And Johnny scored his runs that year as well, and did really well. But I can remember that game. But Chas just said, I'm going to up at batting. Got 70 odd. He batted so well. I can remember him driving their pro through the covers for 4. Absolutely.
I do remember their pro as being a phenomenal player of spin, though.
Go on, P. Talk me through that. Did you get him out twice?
I might have got him out that day.
Yeah.
Caught and bowled, actually. I think it may have been the day Jez said it was the best catch he'd ever seen.
That one you don't dive right across.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's the same season that I dropped one that was underarm to me and caught that one. Which perhaps says a lot about that.
But I can remember from that day, we were really sort of poor and slow in the field. We didn't bowl particularly well, I don't think. I mean, we did all right, but we'd been bowling teams out for fun, and that game we were just a little bit slow off the mark.
I think we bowled well at Tim early doors, and he'd struggled, hadn't he? And then he just went, he just got into his stride a little bit. And it's happened a few times during that season, didn't it? That, like he's an opening batter, but there were a few times where players who'd not normally got runs against us, or lower order batsmen got runs against us. It just seemed a bit strange, We'd blow away the top order sometimes, then we'd struggle with 7, 8, 9, 10. A couple of times it came back to bite us, particularly in that next period of the semi-final of the Cup, the 2020 final, probably where we didn't obviously win more than what we did with the league. We just struggled at just dislodging batsmen that we normally had no problems with. I'm not 100% sure why that happened.
No, I don't know. Cobb, what do you think?
Yeah, to the back end, I think sometimes when we were so far ahead of the game, we sort of switch off. And then, let's say, sometimes we didn't manage to finish off games which you would like to. I can't really put my hand to it, but I think it's a little bit of complacency also that creeped in there because we were playing such good cricket. That thing sort of just happened, and we were just better than the other guys around us at the time. And I think our belief was so strong, but I think complacency is the right word there. We sort of felt like we could have finished guys off a little bit more.
We were almost expecting it to happen without really putting maybe not a lot of thought, but a lot of energy into it. We just thought, all right, well, we've got too many for them anyway, so they're going to struggle to. This guy's not got runs against us before. He's going to chip one up, or we're going to bowl a decent bowl at him that's going to dislodge him. And a couple of times it just came back to bite us in those cup competitions as opposed to the league. Again, maybe it's the fact that Cobus was bowling so well and putting them under so much pressure during the league games that when it came to 10 overs, trying to spell our bowlers, spell our sort of most attacking threats, and bowl them 3 or 4 overs at the beginning, then bring them back again. And perhaps if we'd have gone for the throat earlier on, we might have won both of those games by bowling the sides out.
It's a great point that you make there, Blaz. And the game that I'm going to use as an example is the Nelson game at home, where we got 250. Hawkey got 60 odd that day. Kobe got 40 odd. But Hawkey hit some massive sixes in that last over against Tomo. But they finished 204 for 9. Just didn't quite finish it off.
Meady got 50 that day. Did he?
Yeah, he got 60. He got 69 batting at 9.
Incredible. When you look at the scores towards the back end of the season, there were people who got runs against us that never used to get runs against us, even when we were having poor seasons. They came back to not haunt us in that sense, but cause us problems when they shouldn't have done.
And I think it's something that still happens now a little bit, Blez.
Yeah.
We do still switch off. When essentially the games we switch off and don't quite.
I know
quite
we said
finish
that.
it off.
We have said that a lot. We switch off. I can't. Who we're talking about switching off when we mention this? And sometimes I just nod and agree in the changing room. Who is switching off? Yes, sometimes we let something go through the field, or we have a bit of a misfield, or we drop a catch, or does it come down to sometimes bowlers trying to do too much? Does it sometimes come down to bowlers trying to overthink what they're doing to the batsman? As a batsman, everyone is we're all batsmen. We all know that, the worst thing you can do is try and do too much as a bowler and, give people freebies. And I think sometimes we are a little bit prone to trying too much against batsmen that aren't as good as we think they are. I don't know. What do you think, P, as an amateur bowler?
Well, that day I dropped him in the last over, so I can't say much.
Yeah,
but,
that's,
I think even if you watch Test cricket, international cricket, there's the amount of times you see a 9th, 10th wicket partnership that's 20, 30, 40.
Yeah.
And you're talking about people with 500 Test wickets can't get them out. So I think it's just a bit of a sort of nuance of the game that happens quite regularly. A partnership, and if a team's, I think there was something like 100 for 8 that day.
Yeah.
There's always going to be one partnership, and I think it just conveniently for them occurred at 100 for 8.
If I can come in here, I think important thing is that what I was trying to say now, obviously looking from the other side, from a coaching point of view, these things do happen. But I think the one thing that needs to stand out here is if that partnership goes at our rate, if you understand what I'm saying from a fielding point of view, and they don't take the game away, they're allowed to have a partnership, but it should just be at a controllable rate. That's very, very important.
Yeah.
I fully agree with Blaze, and I've also been guilty in my playing days that your best ball who gets out batter number 1, 2, 3, and 4 shouldn't be any different for number 9, 10, and 11. And sometimes as a bowler, you try and bowl them out and you go straight and you go fuller. And if you think about it, if you go fuller for a Yorker and you miss it, it becomes a leg stump half volley that any Tom, Dick, and Harry can hit for a boundary. And I think that's where I fully agree with Blaze in terms of having the same principle and the same discipline. towards the back end, 9, 10, and 11, that you had up front to 1, 2, 3, and 4, sometimes get neglected.
I do think that's right. When I talk about switching off players, I think it's more of a collective lowering of intensity.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna happen at 108 for 8, though, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Normally you're expecting, most times you're expecting that to be over within 2 or 3 overs, aren't you? So you do relax a little bit, and you do think, well, things are going to come to a close fairly quickly. And I agree, perhaps you shouldn't do, but like Paddy says, that happens a lot in first class test match cricket. So that's something difficult to keep that intensity up at that stage, isn't it, really?
Yeah, absolutely. When the win's essentially a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, Blaise, it's difficult not to switch off when you're fielding because you are literally stood in a field.
Yeah.
And you could have points where the ball don't come to you for 2 hours. So, I mean, if you were just stood in your garden for 2 hours, you'd switch off.
Yeah.
Which you probably shouldn't do, but you can't help it, can you?
No.
Just standing there.
It's just when we have these discussions, or when you sit in the dressing room and you say, not that somebody's beat you, they didn't beat us, Nelson didn't beat us, but it's just frustrating, isn't it? And you say the first thing that comes into your mind that's, you've lost intensity. Well, yeah, you have, because Richard Mead's got 60 and somebody else at number 11's got 20. You sort of do get frustrated. You do lose intensity when that happens. But it's important, I think, to try and identify where that starts. And I don't think it starts with dropping the intensity in the field. It doesn't start with people relaxing, although it might do with, in some senses. It's more to do with the plans that you have as a bowler or as a team coming together and saying to whoever's bowling, yourself or Joe or Cobus, and saying, look, let's just have a quick reset here. When he's got to 20, he shouldn't be getting any more than this by us doing something different. We should go back to plan A and, defend if we need to defend against him. But like Cobus said, just slow the thing down, slow his progress down. Because from memory, he got 60 and he was getting boundaries. It wasn't, we were perhaps too attacking in some ways to try and get him out.
I mean, the intensity thing doesn't help either, does it, Blaise? When you look round and Johnny Whitehead's doing his press-ups on the side, or Oakey's spinning around at fan leg.
No.
That win against Nelson started a very big period of games where we essentially steamrolled teams.
Yeah.
We were home very early.
I wrote some of those down. Just after the Worsley Cup defeat and after the 2020 final defeat, and you thinking, are we on the sort of cusp of imploding a little bit? Because they came very quickly after one another, didn't they? They came after one another very quickly, didn't they, during that part of the season? And things could have gone wrong, but we just steamrolled sides after that, didn't we? I wrote it. We got 139 again, which wasn't great. Then we bowled them out for 33. We bowled Nelson out for 67. We bowled Rishton out for 81. They were just straight away, games that we'd won in the first innings.
Yeah,
it's a bit like the old wounded animal, weren't it? We had a bit more of a point to prove, I think.
Yeah.
But it could have been easily gone the other way, couldn't it? We could have thought, we've lost that. What's the point?
Yeah.
Order! Send more house to save the house.